This is Center Stage, putting your firm in the spotlight by highlighting business owners and other industry experts to help take your firm to the next level. Hey everyone, and welcome to Center Stage. I'm your host, John Henson, and this week we are talking once again about your case management software. It is one of the most important tools you can have in your firm, and I hear a lot of the conversations happening out there. A lot of you maybe still don't use it. Maybe you're still using a spreadsheet, or God forbid, you're still using paper files. But those of you who do have a CRM, whether it's a Clio, Lawmatics, maybe Assembly, whatever it is, there's a lot out there. But I hear a lot of you talking about it, and you're not using it in the full sort of scope that those softwares are designed for. You're using it very minimally, and there's a lot of things that these platforms can do that would actually make your life even easier than just managing your cases. And so to provide some tips and some insight into all of the things that these platforms can do, I am joined by Melanie Leonard from Streamlined Legal. Melanie, thanks for joining us.
Hey, John, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So yeah, before we dive in, tell us a little bit about who you are and what Streamline Legal does.
Sure, absolutely. So I am actually a former practicing attorney, started my own practice a couple years after graduating law school, did residential real estate for a number of years, and eventually started my own practice, grew that for a while, and then decided that helping other attorneys build their practices was a lot more fun than practicing law, at least for me. And
Yeah.
so I went ahead and sold my law firm and started Streamline Legal. And, it's interesting, you just brought up the fact that a lot of attorneys are not using their practice management software to its fullest capabilities.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I started Streamline Legal. Like that's what I saw. That's what I experienced myself, frankly. I saw other attorneys doing it, and I thought, well, geez, we're paying all this money for practice management software. If we were using it, we'd really be getting some great value out of that. So we started Streamline Legal. It's just been awesome. We've been around for about 5 years now. We've got 12 people on our team, and we just love diving into other firms and helping them build their businesses, specifically through maximizing the use of their practice management software and their CRMs. So that's where we enjoy hanging out.
Yeah, awesome. And just as kind of a small disclaimer, I don't think that it really matters. But you specifically, your expertise is in Clio Grow and Lawmatics. But if you are out there listening and you're on another platform, I still believe that, broadly speaking, a lot of what we're going to talk about today is stuff that you can look into and learn about, and things that your specific platform is capable of. Am I right there?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you, honestly, there's more similarities than differences, right? Like a
Mhm.
lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today can be used on any of these platforms. Some of them maybe do something a little bit better than the others, but they all have their own little differences. But overall, the things that we're going to talk about are really going to be helpful no matter what technology you're using. So I'd encourage you to stick around and gather all the tips.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and one thing I wanted to ask you first is, and the fact that you were a practicing attorney beforehand, I think you can really help speak into this. But whether someone has a platform already or not, maybe they're, not happy with like how the UX is laid out, or how it functions or anything like that. What kind of tips or advice would you give to someone when it comes to trying to find a platform to start working with?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, in my opinion, whichever one you're going to use is the best one, right? So like
Right.
when you sit down, most of them will give you some type of trial, or you can, check it out from a friend or whatever, or they'll do a demo for you. When you do like dive in and start clicking around and trying things out, which one is more intuitive to you, right? I mean, I've very quickly found Clio to be very easy to use. I have other, attorneys that I've worked around that say my case is their favorite, or, Practice Panther's their favorite, just because of the fact simply that they knew where to click, or felt like they knew where to click, and it made their lives easier. So, again, I go back to the fact that they're all very much more similar than different. And so if there's one that you're just drawn to as far as ease of use and how to use it and where to click, then pick that one, because that one's going to give you the most benefit, because you're going to be using it more and you're going to get more out of it. So definitely, I would say start with some type of trial or some opportunity to click around and just figure out what's appealing to you, I think that you'll get a lot of benefit from any of the ones that you pick, frankly.
Awesome. Love it. So let's kind of dive in here. Just assuming that people are using their platforms for case management, putting that aside, there are so many different other elements of your business that these platforms are really good for. Selfishly, I want to talk about marketing. That's what we do. And I know that, for us, when it comes to the people that we work with, being able to like we can only do so much, right? Like we can, a marketing company can generate the referrals for you. We can generate the leads for you, whatever it is. But then once they get to you, you've got to have the systems in place to do it. So what should firm owners have in place to start working with the leads that they generate in terms of how it's integrated into their case management?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, of course, when we're all starting out, it's a spreadsheet or it's a, Word document or whatever, just to be able to stay afloat. But I'll tell you, those things you'll quickly outgrow them and they'll quickly become more of a problem than a help. And so I would say as soon as possible, I would recommend that you get some type of software, whether it's, Clio Grow or Lawmatics or Lead Docket or whichever one is most helpful for you. But I really think being able to have some central repository for other people to be able to access that information as well, so that you're not the only one that's like holding this information. That is super, super important because again, you're only one person, you can't scale that way. If you're getting one lead a month and you have some type of, high value practice where you only need, one case every 6 months, then
Right.
yes, maybe you don't need that. But most of us are working at some type of volume where it is super helpful to have other people helping us screen those leads or, organize those leads. And that software is going to come in really handy. So definitely, I would say get some type of software that's going to help you with that. The other thing I would say is look at two things. Where are your leads coming from a lot of? So for example, do you get a lot of website leads, right? Is there a form on your website? Do people call your office a lot? There's different methods, obviously, and a lot of us use multiple methods, but there's usually one that is more prevalent than others. And you want to think about that one. How can we incorporate that into whatever software we're going to buy? So for example, if you get a lot of phone calls, right, and you have some type of answering service, you're working with a Ruby receptionist or Smith AI or something like that, it would be super nice if they could just tap right into your software and enter that data for you. So that's maybe something that you want to prioritize. Now, on the flip side, on the opposite side, once a client does hire you, how are you going to get that information out of that software into your practice management software? So I would look at both ends, right? When they do hire you, do we have the capability just to click a button and it all goes into our practice management software so we can track them as we represent them? Those two, I think, just looking at the front end and looking at the back end of how the clients or potential clients come in and out of the software is going to just put you a step ahead, because again, a lot of these softwares have the ability to create, engagement letters very quickly and get them digitally signed and all that. That's all very similar as far as the capabilities go, but being able to get it in and out of the software, I find that can be a bit of a challenge. And if you address that up front, you're going to be, just a step ahead.
Yeah, and I love that, because I think to me a big part of it is it's that efficiency angle and that time saving angle where sure, and maybe you can speak to this, in terms of like there might be a time commitment up front to get it set up, especially if, for example, a client comes in and you have like a paper intake form that you need them to either type out or fill out, and then you have to scan it in, and then you have to manually transcribe it over and fill the records up. So there might be a little bit of a time commitment to digitize that in a way to where there's a digital form you send out and then that automatically connects to that client's record. Fine. But even in just a couple of months, depending on what your lead volume is, how much time does that create for somebody?
Exactly. No, you're 100% correct. And I think what I see happen actually is like the attorneys or the firm owners or whoever's in charge of this decision, they'll buy the software. They'll say, hey, team, here's the new software. It's going to be great. And then they just kind of drop it in the team's lap,
Yeah.
or in their own laps, frankly, and they don't take the time to really figure it out. So for example, I see a lot of firms that will use the digital signature tool in some of these softwares, but then they'll be creating that document in Word and turning it into a PDF and bringing the PDF into the software and setting up the signature lines and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Instead of taking the 30 minutes, however long it's going to be, to figure out how to actually create the document within the software so that that becomes a click of one button.
Right.
And I agree with you. It is sometimes hard when you're like, I have to get this, especially for engagement letters, like you want to get those out quick, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, I have to get this letter out, I don't have time to mess around with this. I get that, but at the same time, if you're thinking more long term, just like you said, you're going to spend the 30 minutes now, but you're going to save that 30 minutes for the next however long, right?
Yeah.
So definitely I see that sometimes we're expecting this software to be, easier than it is, frankly.
Right.
There is a learning curve and there is some setup that is involved, and definitely it's worth the time that you're going to spend on it, in my experience.
Yeah. And so, what about for people who may not consider themselves very tech savvy, or maybe they just feel like they don't have time to set all of this up, or whatever the case is? In your experience, and I know you would know the answer to this for Clio and Lawmatics, maybe other platforms that you've had experience with. I know for us, for example, we use a platform called Zoho. It's more of a generalized platform. It's applicable for a lot of other industries use it. It's not just like a legal specific platform like a Clio or Lawmatics, stuff like that. But they do not really have a lot of tools or assistance available directly from Zoho to help you set it up. Instead, they rely on other consultants, other companies who specialize in that, kind of similar into how you guys are at Streamlined Legal. You are experts in setting up. What does that look like from a legal CRM standpoint? Do any of these platforms have direct training and assistance, or is it more for folks like you to help other people out? I think I lost you.
I'm sorry, John, you froze. Are
Oh, it was
you
me.
there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here now.
I,
All right, hang on.
I
Let's
think
see
it's
what's
you.
happening. All right, hang on. Let's see. I had the same problem yesterday.
No
So
problem.
let me see something real quick.
At least it didn't happen in the middle of an answer. Maybe you can,
Right.
you know.
All right. Yeah, my speed's really good. I'm at 60. So we did have like a crazy thing happen this morning. I don't know if it was like a power surge or like there's construction
Oh,
going on like next door and they like hit a cable or something, but like the elevator went out, and like we had like random power outlets go out. Like the lights stayed on, but then like some outlets were working, some were completely shot. And so like I don't know what's going on
weird,
here. But all right.
weird. Okay,
So
it seems to be fine now. So,
I think we're good here.
um, I
So
will answer
yeah,
your question, except, oh, what does it look like? Yes. What does it look like to get help?
yeah. So basically just does like Clio Lawmatics have like direct training, direct support to help people get up to speed, or do they kind of leave it up to businesses like yours to kind of take a deep dive into that?
Yeah, there are a lot of softwares that do offer, some type of support, whether it's, videos or articles, or, Clio has a whole Clio University where you can go and, look up whatever you need. But I will tell you, a lot of the times I find that it's very general information, right?
Hmm.
Which can be helpful, but I find that firms are much more successful if they can put together kind of the underlying procedure, like how are we going to use this software, right?
Hmm.
First we're going to do this, and then this person's going to do that in the software, and then this person's going to do this on the phone, and that person's going to do that in the software. And so when you kind of build out that process, I find that you're much more successful in working with the software. And so that's really where consultants like Streamline Legal can come in. Is yes, we can absolutely teach you how to use the software as far as where to click and all that, but I think the real value is in like when and how and why are we using the software, right?
Yeah.
So kind of to pay attention to not only the where do we click, but then also the how and why and when, I think is super important. And so that's what we like to do at Streamline Legal, is really help people build out those processes and then incorporate the software into that process to make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck from both the process and the software, right? And that obviously can be done with any software, and should, frankly, in my opinion, because that's how you're going to get the most out of it.
Yeah, and honestly, in kind of the experience that I've had with Zoho, it's like you go straight to the actual software. It's going to take a little bit longer because they're not going to really understand the unique situation because you've set it up unique to your firm. And so then you got to book an appointment to schedule a screen sharing session. And then they've got to try to figure out how to troubleshoot versus, working directly with a consultant. It's almost like, especially if you help them set it up and you have everything, it's like they bring you an issue and you can just probably be like, don't worry about it. I can go in here and fix it for you real quick. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah, and that was the experience I had. Like I did build it out all myself. And even if you're a firm where, we've got a super techie intern or something like that we're going to try and take advantage of, that's great. But just keep in mind, it took me 8 years before I ever started using document automation inside of Clio, right? It's a slow process, and you're practicing law, you've got other stuff, you've got the team has other stuff to do too, and it doesn't always take a priority. And so while yes, absolutely, you probably could figure it out along the way, how long is that going to take? And how much benefit instead could you be getting if you could set it up that much faster? So in my experience, definitely it is not your highest and best use of your time if you're trying to build a business to actually build out your software. Instead, hire someone like Streamlined Legal or whatever consultant is going to help you with that particular software, and make sure that you're getting the benefit as quickly as possible. Otherwise, and you've seen it. I mean, we all have attorneys that we know that they're like, "Oh yeah, we've been building out Lawmatics for like 6 years now," and it's like,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Good luck on that, right?
Right.
You kind of lose your enthusiasm at some point, and you kind of lose the confidence that that's going to happen. So yeah, I think there's huge benefit in outsourcing that, so that the firm can get that benefit and return on investment ASAP.
Yeah, no, and what you just said like really resonates with me because like we've been using Zoho since like 2018, and we got the CRM built all out. Like that is where we are at. But there's so many other applications and integrations that they have that we still have our email marketing somewhere else. We still have all of our financial and bookkeeping stuff somewhere else. And there's ways to like build all of that out within that suite. And we'll get to that in a second, in terms of like what the rest of these platforms are capable of. But one of the things that I wanted to ask you about is in terms of data tracking, right? Especially from the marketing side, you want to make sure you're having a good ROI on the investments that you're making. But one of the challenges that we have, especially specific to us, is we're going to say, okay, we can help you generate more referrals, but we're not in your CRM. We can't, we can only know so much about who's coming into your firm. And so being able to track that data and being able to understand who came in as a referral, being able to cross-reference, before working with us, prior or, to current, whatever the case is. So what kind of tips do you have for, being able to track data, but making it sustainable so that you can really build up a really good understanding of not even just marketing data necessarily, but just all the data that you need to keep track of?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I have 2 points there. Number one is train your team. I mean,
Mhm.
I there's so many times where I'll go in and the software has all that capability, right? Like it can track, where did the lead come from? What's the lead worth? Like what's your pipeline value look like? Like it can
Mhm.
do all that stuff, but people aren't putting the data in, or they don't know what to put in, or they don't know how to put it in. And so they just skip over it. They move past because that's not an urgent thing right now. They need to get response to this lead, and it doesn't ever get tracked. And so then people get frustrated because they go to the reporting and they're like, the software is not reporting anything. It's not correct. It's always wrong. Garbage in, garbage out. I mean, if you're going to sit there and not put in the right data or not put in any data or make stuff up, then yeah, it's going to be a mess. So number one is train your team, give them the ability to make that correct. And then also monitor that, right? Because if we have some people that are entering it and some people that aren't, and we're very inconsistent, that's not going to help us either. I mean, the whole key behind data, in my opinion, is that consistency, right? If we're not measuring it the same way, if we're not measuring it every time, you're not going to get good data. So that's number one place where I would look and start thinking about, And then number two is sometimes I feel like people get a little bit overwhelmed, like, what am I supposed to be tracking and how am I supposed to track all this stuff? And I know I'm supposed to track this, but I don't know where to track it or how to track it. My best advice with that is just pick one or two things to start with, right? Like, number one, where did the lead come from? When you know where 100% of your leads come from, let's start tracking something else, right? Like,
Right.
it doesn't have to be all at once. Sometimes I feel like we get a little bit overwhelmed with, oh, I need a dashboard and it's going to have these 12 things on it. Yes, a dashboard with 12 things is awesome, right?
Right.
But if your 12 things on that pretty dashboard don't give you consistent data because your team's not doing it, then it's not worth much, right? So my best advice is just start small and build onto that, right? Because now they're in the habit of collecting this information. Now 100% of the time they're asking, where did you hear about us? Or however you're collecting this information. Then once that's 100% of the time, okay, let's look at, what's the value of the case, right? Okay, well, I don't know the value of the case. It could be this, it could be that. Sure, but you've got 20 years, 10 years, whatever of experience telling you probably this is about what this case is going to be worth, right? The
Yeah.
client doesn't know. They've never done this before, but you've done this before. And so even if it's a guesstimate, that's still going to get you closer to that information than nobody filling it out. So those are the kind of steps that I would take in order to build up that data in a way that makes sense. Because again, you can buy the fanciest dashboard and it can track all the stuff. But if you're not actually putting it in or with any, background behind it, as far as values and things like that, then it's really not going to be worth much.
Yeah.
So I think I would look at those two things first. And then once you're like a data tracking machine, yeah, go get all the dashboards because it's going to make your life that much easier, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel people kind of jumping ahead. I've got this great dashboard and it tells me nothing. Well,
Right.
then what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. So other than marketing stuff, and I hinted at this earlier, what other kinds of integrations can you, like, could you realistically have everything all in one spot, whether it's, bookkeeping, finance tracking, whatever that might look like, maybe even like, HR related stuff, employee metrics, KPIs, around not even, even just beyond like case management related tasks. But I mean, what other sorts of things are these platforms capable of doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I really don't believe that there's the one ring to rule them all yet. Like, I really think that no software out there for law firms specifically is perfect, right? And so you could try doing it all in one place, but you're going to be using a lot of workarounds and a lot of things that are going to
Mm.
make your life more difficult. So where it is all incorporated, I say go for it, right? Like, if you have a practice management software, which most of them do, by the way, have some type of document automation, right?
Mhm.
Awesome. If you're not using that, like, you're wasting it. So those are the kind of features that I would look at and say, okay, we've got that already in this software. Let's use it. But there may be other applications, like, for example, we use Gusto for, paychecks and things like that.
Mhm.
And it's awesome. Like, it's easy. It's not like, it's just a great product. So I would never want to mess my Clio and like try and figure out a way to make that happen in Clio, right? Like, or even
Yeah.
QuickBooks or whatever. Like, no, if there's something out there that does it awesome and it's not a big challenge to work with the two, it's not like I have to take data from Clio and put it in there and vice versa and all
Right.
that. Then yeah, use it. Like, I feel like sometimes we're in such a we're so excited to have everything in one place that we make our lives harder.
Mhm.
Um, Now on the flip side, it's a balance, right? Like, it could go the other way. I
Yeah.
might find 20 different tools that do everything, this thing does that so awesome and that thing does that so awesome, but they don't talk to each other. So now I'm spending 70% of my time finding
Yeah.
things and making things talk to each other. So there's no right or wrong answer, but I don't believe there's a perfect software. I do believe there are ways that you can make your software work better together. We are big fans of Zapier.
Yeah.
There's Automate and other soft platforms that do the same thing. But, when I shop for software, I go to Zapier's website and I look and I say, well, what's going to work with the stuff I already have, right? And
Yep.
that has worked really well for me. So I think that, with having an expectation that you're gonna be able to do it all in one place is probably unrealistic. But I also don't want you to feel like you have to buy 4 million pieces of software. Check out what you have first. Because sometimes what I find is people don't even know what the software does, right? Like they bought it for this particular purpose, but they didn't realize that it did 10 other things, right? So
Yeah.
just get to know the software you have first. If it can do it, great. And if it can't, that's when you start looking.
Yeah, and I love that. And so one of the last things I wanted to ask you about is where and maybe these platforms don't have this capability yet. And if there's nothing really on the horizon, that's totally okay. But what I'm starting to see in some other different areas is how these platforms are starting to use AI to help provide some additional insights. And the larger conversations are all around, oh God, is AI going to replace people jobs? But no, like I really see a lot of these AI tools as being really, really good aids, and really, being able to provide really practical insights. Like maybe AI can tell you, oh, this client's probably not going to pay you on time. Or, you used an example earlier, maybe AI can help come up with an estimate for how much a case, what a case's value is really going to be. Are you seeing anything like that in these spaces? And what does that look like?
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet with respect to practice management specifically.
Hmm.
I think it could and probably will happen in the near future. But I'll tell you the things I've seen come closest are things like chat bots, right, that will
Hmm.
respond automatically.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, whether you program them or whether it's AI or a combination or whatever. So that I think is a great application. Obviously, a lot of content generation, right? I mean, that's like a
Hmm.
super great application for AI. And then I've also seen it with respect to like legal research, right? To help
Yeah.
people be able to research things faster and easier and things. And I think those are all great applications. I've not yet seen it with respect to practice management itself, but I think there's some really great opportunities and places where it could work.
Hmm.
For example, I forgot what it's called, but where you basically create like a video version of yourself talking, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
they basically talk as if they were you and
Yeah.
whatever. I I think that's very cool, and I think it's an interesting way that we can bring a level of relationship to us and our clients, right? I mean, like
Yeah.
the same way that video just in general did that, right? Like we post a ton of videos at Streamlined Legal, and most of them are me, some of them are our other team members, but like people will call up and be like, oh, I feel like I know you because I watched your videos, right? Well, I think that same kind of thing can happen now with this AI generated video of me, right? Because
Yeah.
now, by the way, I haven't started using it, but it sounds very exciting to me.
Yeah.
Um, but now, I can just multiply the effect or the message that I'm trying to get out, because now it doesn't have to be just me, right?
Right.
So I think there's a huge amount of opportunity there. I just haven't seen it quite yet. I'm sure it's there. I'm sure it's coming. I'm sure.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I can say this, and I'm bringing up Zoho again, not because it's an advertisement for them, and I would never even recommend it for a law firm. I go
Sure.
with a legal specific practice management software, but Zoho has started to come out with a lot of AI stuff that, like I mentioned, where it's like, social media composers, even just some like predictive sort of things that can give some extra insights, into what your leads might do, like best time to contact them, different other kinds of insights based on some other patterns. And so really excited to see how that's, because that's only going to make your life easier, and really help you serve your clients a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. And we already preach when we are working with clients in practice management software that that's the kind of data you want to track, right? If you're a personal injury attorney and you're trying to track, what's the loss of an arm worth, I mean, that's stuff that really can affect your clients and future and existing clients. And, what did this insurance company offer and what did that judge decide and all that kind of stuff. Those are huge insights that I'm just now seeing people kind of, or I shouldn't say people, but companies using AI to try and analyze that kind of information. What I haven't yet seen is it baked into any particular practice management software, right? Which I
Yeah.
think which would be a huge benefit, right?
Mhm.
Once we get to that point. So I'm very excited about that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I know it'd only be a matter of time before one of these platforms picks it up and starts running with it. And so we'll
I
start
think
to see
so.
that. So how can people learn more about Streamlined Legal and see about what all the things that you guys do?
Absolutely. So please feel free to reach out to us online. We can be found at streamlined.legal. That's our website. We're on all the major social media platforms. But specifically, if you want to go to our website, we have on there basically a PDF that you can download that will show you, kind of walk you through where your leads are coming from and how to best funnel those into your CRM. So again, earlier in our conversation, we talked about, maybe they're coming over the phone, maybe you get an email, maybe you get a web form, whatever. But being able to collect those all in one place and make it as easy as possible, I think can be a challenge sometimes. And I think it's something definitely I would encourage you guys to take a look at and kind of look at your own leads and see where they're coming from and how you can handle that.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'll make sure that that link is down in the show notes so you guys can access that. And so even if you feel like your leads are coming into your CRM, I still highly recommend looking at things like this because there may be other angles, other different areas that you may not have considered that can take it to the next level. So, I really do
Absolutely.
appreciate having that resource. One final question for you before we wrap up. And that is, if you had one final piece of advice for our audience, what would it be?
Don't underestimate the value of training on your practice management software. I think that just too many firms leave it up to their team to kind of figure it out or for themselves to figure it out. And if your goal is to build your business and continue to grow, then it's really not the highest and best use of your time. And you could outsource that type of training and instead, and be able to just get that return on investment that much faster. So definitely, I would say consider any type of training value add for your practice management software and your CRM for that matter.
Absolutely. And then, and the big takeaway from that is that that'll help you save you so much time because you don't really have to worry about it at that point. As the person trying to implement it, you can rely on the training and, all the troubleshooting that comes with it. And so love
Excellent.
that. Really appreciate all the insight today. Thank you all for continuing to listen. Please leave a rating and review if you have not done so yet, wherever you're listening to the show, Spotify, YouTube, Apple, wherever. Really do appreciate it. That's going to do it. Melanie, thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
Thanks for listening. To learn more, go to spotlightbranding.com/center stage.